Good morning. The 8,665th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in Somalia. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representative of Somalia to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. Members of the Council have before them document S/2019/880, the text of a draft resolution submitted by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I wish to draw the attention of Council members to document S/2019/858, a letter dated the 1st of November 2019 from the Chair of the Security Council Committee pursuant to Resolution 751 of 1992 concerning Somalia and addressed to the President of the Security Council. The Council is ready to proceed to the vote on the draft resolution before it. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favour of the draft resolution contained in document S/2019/880 please raise their hand. Is it abstentions next? Abstentions? The result of the voting. Those against? The result of the voting is as follows: 12 votes in favour, no votes against, 3 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2498 of 2019. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Madam President, the Russian Federation was compelled to abstain during the vote on the draft Security Council resolution for the extension of sanctions against Somalia. We concur with the fact that the situation within that African Horn state remains tumultuous. We actively contributed to efforts for identification and clarification of the provisions of the Somali arms embargo. We hope that this and other measures stipulated under the resolution will help to normalize the situation and will help to eradicate a terrorist threat, which stems above all from the Shabaab. At the same time, we continue to remain concerned regarding some of the wording in the resolution. Specifically, we believe that it is unjustified for the text of the document of the Security Council on sanctions, the Somali sanctions regime, the fact that there is inclusion of wording on Djibouti and Eritrea that is not acceptable. We wish to recall the following. Last year, together with you, we lifted restrictions from Eritrea, and the situation regarding Asmara and Djibouti does not pose a threat to international peace and security. Resolution of the outstanding issues between the countries lies in the realm of bilateral diplomacy. We also regret the fact that the sponsors sought to overburden the document with instructions on the human rights theme. Once again, we reiterate that this is not within the direct purview, neither of the Security Council nor of the Somalia Sanctions Committee. To discuss these matters, there are a specific body, that is the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. Once again, we call for there to be adherence to the division of labor. To conclude, I wish to voice our significant concerns in the light of what is artificially created, the timeline in connection with the drafting of the resolution. As a result, Council members found themselves in a difficult position. It was important, this document had to be agreed upon in an oral regime. And this, despite the fact that it underwent significant substantive changes as compared to last year's text. Our delegations spared no effort to maintain the consensus support for this document, which is of such critical importance for our Somali friends. We deeply regret the fact that this was not heeded. We trust that our British colleagues will draw the necessary conclusions and that the situation will not be repeated. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the Russian Federation for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of China.
Madam President, at present, the situation in Somalia has remained generally stable. The federal government has actively promoted national reconstruction and made important progress in the political, economic, and security sectors. However, the achievement of lasting peace in Somalia remains a challenge. The international community and the Security Council should continue to provide support and assistance to Somalia under the principle of Somalian leadership and ownership. The Council has just adopted Resolution 2498. China actively participated in the consultations on the draft resolution on the mandate renewal of the Somali Sanctions Committee and put forward reasonable recommendations and proposals constructively based on the demands of the country concerned. We have noted the efforts made by the penholder and the improvements of the text, yet regrettably, some of our proposals were not adopted. China still has concerns about some of the content, and we were compelled to abstain from voting. China believes that the current situation in the Horn of Africa is constantly improving and is at a new stage of development. The relationship between Djibouti and Eritrea did not pose a threat to international and regional peace and security. Both countries are committed to normalizing relations and have made great efforts to this end. The Council and the international community should affirm this and acknowledge their efforts, and based on respecting the ownership of the two countries, provide assistance in good faith to avoid imposing a solution. Otherwise, it will only be counterproductive. On the issue of human rights, China always believes that human rights issues should be discussed in specialized bodies such as the Human Rights Council. The Security Council is not a suitable place to discuss human rights issues. The Council should abide by its mandate and concentrate on issues related to international peace and security, including the work of its subsidiary bodies. The same principle applies. The relevant text of the resolution may set a bad precedent and affect the Council's deliberations on the issue of Somali sanctions. China has reservations about this. China hopes the Council will conduct more extensive consultations on the draft resolutions in future and avoid hastily put it to a vote, therefore achieving the maximum consensus. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of China for his statement. I give the floor to the representative of Equatorial Guinea.
Thank you, Madam President. This morning, the Security Council has just adopted the resolution through which it renews the sanctions on Somalia. My delegation supports the panel of experts and welcomes its intensive work to contribute to improving the security situation in Somalia and in the Horn of Africa. We encourage it to do its utmost to always work in coordination with Somali authorities. Notwithstanding this, the Republic of Equatorial Guinea has abstained on this resolution since we consider that the negotiation process that led to the adoption of it lacked the sufficient breadth to take into account certain important considerations that our delegation shared with certain members. Our request sought to achieve a balanced text that could reflect the different suggestions made and that is in accordance with the current political situation in the Horn of Africa. We would have liked issues that are not directly related with this resolution to not be mentioned within it. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Equatorial Guinea for his statement. I give the floor to the representative of Kuwait.
شكرا سيد الرئيس نرحب
Thank you, Madam President. At the outset, we welcome the adoption of Resolution 2498 of the Security Council, which renews the sanctions on Somalia for 1 year. We thank the United Kingdom for its transparent and constructive approach throughout the negotiations. The renewal reflects the continuance of support to Somalia in this crucial time. We hope that this period will see progress in terms of the implementation of sanctions. Likewise, we welcome the efforts of the federal government of Somalia to pave the way towards general elections for 2020 and 2021. We call on all Somali parties to join forces to overcome the barriers that are stymieing the achievement of socioeconomic and security improvements. We call on them to prioritize national interests above all interests, and we also insist on the importance of continuing to assist the Somali people to build a global federal state that respects the fundamental freedoms and human rights of all citizens. In conclusion, Madam President, we reiterate our call for respect for the independence of Somalia and its territorial integrity and sovereignty. We call on the international community to pursue its support to the federal government to allow it to rebuild its state and restore security. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Kuwait for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Belgium.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam. Belgium welcomes the adoption of this resolution, which extends the partial lifting of the embargo to support security sector reform in Somalia. The sanctions regime contributes to the fight against the Shabaab and helps to counter threats to peace and security in Somalia, which also afflict neighboring countries. We commend the efforts undertaken by the British penholder to update the embargo measures in order to enhance visibility and transparency and to take into account the threat posed by IEDs. We also welcome the clear language regarding the Sanctions Committee's importance of exchange of information with the Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict, the Special Representative for conflict-related sexual violence, and the High Commissioner for Human Rights. This resolution also renews the mandate of the panel of experts, and we call upon the federal government of Somalia to restore cooperation with these experts, this cooperation which will help to ensure cooperation towards a common goal, that being peace and security in Somalia. Thank you, Madam.
I thank the representative of Belgium for her statement. I give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me, Madam President, to congratulate you on your presiding over the Security Council this month. I also would like to commend your predecessor, the Permanent Representative of South Africa, my brother, Ambassador Jerry Machila, for his exemplary leadership in guiding the work of the Council in the month of October. Madam President, we take note with reservation on the just adopted resolution renewing the sanctions regime on Somalia. We regret that the important inputs have not been considered to reach consensus. The federal government of Somalia goes on record again in seeking the lifting of the sanctions imposed on Somalia since 1992. In that regard, I would like to raise the following 4 points. 1, the sanctions imposed on Somalia is the longest United Nations sanction regime with the broadest mandate. Not only the measures of this outdated Somali sanction regime fall short to take into account the Somalis' positive new reality on the ground, but they also are not properly aligned with the federal government's flagship policy of rebuilding a unified and sufficiently equipped Somali National Army capable of safeguarding our people and territory. Despite our belief that sanctions are flawed in principle, they continue to be imposed on Somalia without having clearly defined benchmarks to attain the full lifting of the sanctions. We welcome the SG's technical assessment mission visit to Mogadishu in June to conduct a review of the arms embargo, and we have taken the team's recommendation on board. 2, as you are aware, the terrorist group Shabaab remains a serious threat to Somalia's peace and stability, and to that of the region. The international community has spent generously millions of dollars on UN monitoring team and panel of experts for the past decade. We firmly believe that it's not sustainable and will not properly address the root cause of the problem. Since we have limited capacity of securing the remote areas along our borders, we call on our partners to invest in improving our government's capacity in border control to curb the flows of foreign fighters, illegal weapons, as well as other resources. It's our main responsibility to monitor and safeguard our borders. Number 3, the military base in Berbera continues to be in a clear violation of Somali sovereignty and territorial integrity, and in defiance of United Nations Security Council relevant resolutions. I take this opportunity to commend the Council for taking my government's complaint on board with regards to the build-up of the military in Berbera. We welcome the Council's ongoing efforts to swiftly addressing these blatant violations. Number 4, the best practice in monitoring UN arms embargo is to bring on board subject matter expertise and use evidence-based reporting with reasonable standard of proof. However, there seems to be a very little considerable given to such a practice today. Although the number of panel of experts on Somalia is one of the largest in the UN sanctions regime, the quality of their work and reports remain mixed due to their questionable level of technical professionalism as well as regional expertise. And yet, the panel of experts continue to report false accusations, claims, and gossip undermining our reform efforts and our fight against the terrorist group Shabaab. The federal government of Somalia will not tolerate the naming of Somali individuals and business enterprises being named in the past, current, or the future panel of experts reports without reasonable standard of proof. In that regard, to pave the way for future collaboration, we call for the establishment of the reliable mechanism to redress cases where allegations are wrongly made. We also suggest selecting from a pool of experts with high level of technical professionalism and regional expertise in line with the United Nations Security Council. Best practices to conduct future investigations in Somalia. To conclude, Madam President, we thank the Security Council for their continued support to Somalia's progress. We encourage our partners to invest in a sustainable solution we have identified to counter our current threats. This is the only way we Somali people can reach lasting peace in Somalia. And I thank you.
I thank the representative of Somalia for his statement. There are no more names inscribed. Joe, do you want to speak? There are no further names inscribed on the list of speakers, so the meeting is adjourned.